to Leitner. Puts it up.
You're listening to the Culture State Podcast.
Get ready. Woo!
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Culture State Podcast. Back here, ready for you guys. I am Chris Lee. That is my man.
I'm Dennis Cox. Thanks again for tuning in this week. By the way, Chris, Tuesdays, Papa Murphy's, $10.99 large pizzas. Make sure you go online, order yourself one, $10.99. You give them a follow at Papa Murphy's on Twitter and Instagram. Make sure you get yourself some fresh Papa Murphy's this week.
Change the way you pizza. You know what's really cool about that? We drop every Wednesday at 12 midnight. So you can go to Papa Murphy's, stay up, watch some, movies, do your thing. And then at 12 midnight, boom, new episode of Culture State Podcast ready for you guys. Just like today's episode where we're interviewing pro wrestler and one of my good friends, Darius Lockhart.
Yes.
If you're unfamiliar with that name, don't worry. A lot of people are. But the reason why we have him on is because he's from Charlotte. He's going to be one of the big names in pro wrestling coming up. He's already made some waves. Doing his thing with NWA. He also did his thing, a few matches with AEW, and he's generally considered to be one of the up-and-coming superstars in the world of professional wrestling, and he represents Charlotte, North Carolina.
That's right. And by the way, Chris, I believe you wrestled against Darius Lockhart.
Bunch of times.
Plenty
of times.
Way back.
Yeah, we go way back. We had a nice little program at CWF Mid-Atlantic.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was interesting because, at the time, me and him both didn't have anything to do. We weren't in like a storyline or anything like that. So, we kind of pitched, hey, let's us do something together. And this is before Darius found his revolutionary character. He was wearing these, long tights, red and black. I was just doing my thing. And, and he was the heel at the time. And of course I was a baby face. And we built an entire match around me hurting my hand inside the match. And I felt like it was just it was beautiful because we used that for callbacks later. But we had this program and basically I was, doing my baby face thing, I was all on top of him at the beginning part of the match, and I got too overzealous, and he was against the ring post outside of the ring. I go for a chop to chop him in the chest. He moves out the way. I smack the ring post, like legit smack the ring post pretty hard. Yeah. And so that then hurt my hand, and then he literally spent the entire match working on my hand. He stuffed it inside of the turnbuckle, kicked the turnbuckle. It was all kinds of interesting, unique spots that didn't really involve us doing anything kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. And then one thing that was interesting, he went for a little bit of a roll up. I reach out with that same hand to go grab the rope to break the hold. And he grabs my hand back and pulls it back. And now you can hear me screaming, 1, 2, 3, he wins.
Yeah.
Right. And it was kind of like a beautiful, story kind of centered around like this one mistake that I made. And then we went back and then we had a return match. And then I go for the chop again on the post. And then I remember my mistake. I stopped. And then I ended up stomping on his hand and getting him back and things like that. And I used that against him. So it was a pretty cool thing. You could probably still watch these matches if you search Chris Lee, Darius Lockhart, CWF Mid-Atlantic on YouTube. So, and I don't want to toot my own horn here.
You should toot your own horn, Chris.
But I would have to say that, those matches were really good matches. And I think it really helped me and him both understand storytelling within the ring. Of course, he's been wrestling longer than me because I ended up stopping, but he has gone on to do all kinds of matches way better than that match. But I would like to think that match is like a foundation, and also it kind of helped out with our friendship and just learning how to, work with somebody and how to tell a story and things like that. So it was really good, in my opinion. Especially if you want to go back and see, two wrestlers at the very beginning of their career and one, continuing with it and now starting to make the splashes and waves all across the wrestling community.
Well, that's the thing about wrestling that's almost a lost art in so many ways. So many, I mean, we talked with Tony Schiavone about this recently, is that so many guys are just caught up in getting a reaction from an audience in terms of like this big high flying move. All right, this little move might go viral on social media because I got someone filming it, blah, blah, blah. But what it really comes down to is that, can you tell a great story? Which at the end of the day, even in real life sports, we want great stories. That's really what it comes down to. It's like, okay, can this person overcome this mistake or overcome this weakness, or this team overcome a mistake or weakness? Can they do that? Can they fight against the odds? It's basic standard storytelling for as long as life has been recorded. It's seriously, it's all comes down to. But the little details like that in a match, you don't even see that kind of stuff on the stuff on national television, on WWE or some of these other promotions. That it's amazing how like a guy will quote unquote hurt his knee or hurt his leg in some way during a match, but they have no problem going up to the top rope and doing this big high flying jump and all that stuff. Like, wait, hold on. So like, you couldn't walk seconds ago. No, but now you can climb to the top rope. You can just do this high fancy move and get a win. It's like, no, like that. You have to, like, I'm not dumb. I could see that. But you're describing this story about the stuff with your hand. It's like, oh, you reach out for the rope. Well, guess what? I'm going to use that against you. You made that mistake earlier. Now I beat you because of it.
And now the pain of your hand becomes primary because you're not thinking about your shoulders on the mat, right? Yeah. This was your escape. And then when he does that, and he can hold it for the 3. And that was the whole point of everything. And I felt like it was beautiful, man.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. That's the best part of it. So, Chris, let's go ahead and get to your good friend Darius Lockhart right after this.
Okay, welcome back to the Culture State podcast. And this person right here legit is like, I have 2 best friends in my life, legit one of my 2 best friends. And what we like to do on the show, of course, is to talk to people who help put North Carolina on the map. Well, this is somebody who is currently doing that. And when you look up in 5, 10, 15 years, this person is going to be very much so important in the world of professional wrestling. And also just one of my best friends. Darius Lockhart, thank you so much for joining us. I just want to say this is kind of weird for me right now. I don't know if this is weird for you, but it's kind of weird for me right now just because, like, you know, you're my boy, you know what I'm saying?
No, it's not weird. I mean, it made it easier to say yes. You know, I'm very, I don't know about picky. I don't know if picky is a word because it sounds like I'm turning people down for a reason, but I'm very peculiar when it comes to interviews. I can be very mercurial in nature. So, but when you asked me to do it, I was like, it's easy. I trust Chris to lead. I don't have to tell him what to stay off of or what to lean towards. So it was comfortable. So I'm fine with that. You know, it's happy to be here. Thanks for having me, man.
Real quick, it's awkward for me now because Chris has 2 best friends. I was like, well, if one's Darius, is it not me? Is my whole time I thought I was like,
it's my boy John, but you're coming up though. You're coming up in the world. You're coming up in the world, Dennis.
Mm-hmm.
He's about to walk off.
We'll just do it, you and I. That's the most awkward thing, right?
Yeah, that'll be more awkward if it was just me and him. And first off, I had a chance to just a little bit pay more attention to your figures in the back right there. It looks nice. Thanks. Nice setup.
Appreciate it.
So all right. So first off, for those that don't know you, Darius Lockhart is a professional wrestler from Charlotte, North Carolina. And one of the things, like, you know, I've been saying for a while, like you're going to be big in wrestling, and the end of 2021, things were really starting to kind of come together more on a national scale. NWA happened, and, you know, you weren't able to actually wrestle on the NWA pay-per-view. I can't remember the name of the pay-per-view, but you cut a promo to begin Hard Times. I should have. Yeah,
that's okay. I didn't want to look bad if I didn't say it, because then they're like, you didn't tell them the company pay-per-view, and I'm like, I represent them now, so I gotta be knowledgeable. But yeah, Hard Times.
So you cut a promo, you know, at the beginning of that, and it's interesting, and I should have remembered that Hard Times because it was in a studio like that where Dusty Rhodes cut that Hard Times promo. That was one of the things that kind of helped, you know, I guess solidify him as one of the best out there. And this was your introduction to a lot of people. So how's everything been since then? I know your follower count has been going up. I'm sure more promotions have been kind of contacting you. What's been the reception since that promo you cut at NWA?
Yeah, well, I think the exception's kind of been recognition. You know what I mean? For a lot of times, for any content creator of any sort, let alone a pro wrestler, which is a very niche, like independent pro wrestling is a niche of a niche. So I think you kind of feel like a lot of times when you put things out, it's going into the void and you're just hoping something comes back from it. And sometimes you're making content for the sake of good content. But this was one of those things where it happened, and I kind of knew in the moment that it was going to set me apart because, I was taken out of the match due to an injury. But they were like, but we'll give you promo time. And the match I was stated to be in was a gauntlet match. So that's like 12 people. And so it's like, do you want to be one of 12 or 13, or do you want to be one of one in your own segment and introduce the new show? So giving me, first of all, I want to say thanks to NWA for giving me that spotlight, period, to do that and putting me and trusting me in that position. But then at that point, it was ball in my court. So once we did it, though, I felt good about it because as soon as I got backstage, there were people, people pulling me to the side. Hey, man, you're a hell of a promo. Hey, that was really good. Hey, and then I was blessed enough to be, like complimented by some of the great orators of pro wrestling history. Like it was Raven pulling me to the side, and Mick Foley is messaging me and telling me, great promo, and the current WWE champion at the time, Big E, tweeting me and even commenting about the promo. It was really cool to see that. It was. I don't like the word validation when it comes to like being around my career, because I don't think that we really need things to validate us in terms of quality of talent or humanity or anything like that. But it was a cool thing to just like get that affirmation of what I've thought already, of like, oh yeah, people are paying attention. They're just not saying anything. Right. But like now it's like confirmed, like, nah, we got to see you now. Like we have to. So it was a very cool, like, nod from a lot of people saying, no, we do see you, and your work isn't disappearing into the void. Like you are good, you are talented. So it was really nice to see such positive feedback. I didn't really get anything negative. The fans have been very complimentary of it, even new fans. So people are fans without even watching me wrestle now, which is brilliant. I think that's what every wrestler aims to do at this point in time.
How did that relationship with the NWA come about?
Sorry, yeah, I hate to be long on the last one, my bad. But the situation with the NWA came about was just like, it was a summertime of just full, just me sitting around. Like honestly, they did a tweet and they said something about they congratulated Ron Killings for being the first and only African American NWA champion to this day. And I remember a lot of fans tweeting them being like, why are you proud of that? That's not a flex, da 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 da. And it's something that I had taken note of a long time too, of like, there's only been one. And I remember when they first reinstated the NWA, I kind of always thought in my head, it'd be cool to challenge for that title. So I remember retweeting the tweet that they put about Ron Killings. And they were like, to this day, he's the only African-American champion that NWA has ever had. And I just kind of tweeted a funny tongue-in-cheek, I can fix that. And the tweet like took off, and there was like thousands of tweets, like retweets and likes, and people interacting with it, and it got a lot of buzz. Just that one little tweet, like three words, right? So I was like, okay, there's power. Oh, 4 words, right? I can fix that. Yeah, 4 words. It's like it was like there's a lot of power with that, and I'm like, okay, people are behind it. I wasn't gonna do anything with it. I was gonna kind of ride the wave and see if they DM me. But one of my boys was like, you should cut a promo. And I was like, that might be like, I'm not trying to beg for a job. I don't need it. If they want me, they want me. If they don't, they don't. Like, they'll see me. You know what I mean? They see the numbers. The social media guys interacted with it, so they saw the numbers. But I let them talk me into it. So then I cut the promo. A couple days later, then that blew up. And then they reached out. The social media team was like, well, the promo is too good to ignore, and the people are retweeting it. So we have to like do something with you, or at least tell the boss to do something with you. So they told the bosses, and then a little bit afterwards, they reached out to me, asked me if I'm interested to come out and meet them. So I flew out to, I think we were in Tennessee at the time, because they were at the Chase building, which is like historic for NWA. I went out there, we talked business. They liked what they saw, liked what they got from me, and then they gave me the dates for the next set of tapings in December, and the rest is history. It was just like that. It was just one of those things that you take a shot in the dark. And I'm thankful for people who pushed me to be like, no, tweet that. No, because the same person who told me to drop the promo told me to tweet it, because I wasn't going to even tweet, I can fix it. I was like, is this corny? And he was like, nah, tweet that. I was like, all right. And then so shout out to Sugar Dunkerton for that. And then here we are. It's crazy.
One of the things I think is cool though about that as well, because I feel like things kind of come full circle. We talk about the importance that the NWA has had and the success they've had in the state of North Carolina throughout its history. But then here you are, the first, and only NWA champion calls Charlotte home, a black NWA champion calls Charlotte home. Here you are, another black man from Charlotte who's on the rise in pro wrestling, young, you have so many years ahead of you. I don't want to say pressure, but what kind of excitement does that maybe give you that you can also be another from North Carolina to kind of put that particular thing on your back to also help inspire the next generation of Darius Lockharts or other African-American pro wrestlers who can go back and do the same after you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, it's funny that with pressure, I don't really feel a lot of pressure around it. There are certain things that, give me pressure on pro wrestling, but with something like this, it's like when things line up that much, it's almost like the stars are aligned, like who would have thought, Ron Killings happens to win the NWA title, black man, Charlotte, North Carolina, redemption story of his own. He came back and hit bottom and come back on his own. But I'm like, look how that lines up. It's so similar, it's eerie. And when things line up that eerily, like it almost feel like it was written. You know what I'm saying? Like that Nas album, it was written. So I kind of like, when things line up that way, I just kind of put that to a higher power and go, you know what? If it's meant to happen, it'll happen. And it's lined up too perfectly now. So if the moment comes, I'm confident enough in my ability to, cash in on that. But I almost just feel like it's a blessing. Like it's almost meant to be. It's too perfect. It's too perfect for us both from Charlotte, North Carolina. Yeah. And I don't know, it's small thing. Like R-Truth, I remember going to Charlotte to my first ever like SmackDown as a kid, 12 years old, and R-Truth's like Vignette, like his like I'm Coming thing aired that night. So I was there for his like come back to the WWE. I was there for that. So it's kind of like fate, you know what I mean? It's honestly a privilege and it's exciting. It gets me like, whoa, that's history. That's legacy. That's lineage. That's special. And for things to line up that perfectly, I feel like I got to do it. And if not me, someone else from Charlotte, but I'm here in this position. So it's like, if we don't do it, like, I don't know what type of time we're on. But I would love to I'm proud to be in this position where I've gotten there being myself. That's the most important part to me. Because what is that says to me more like for future Darius Lockhart, as you put it, a future young black talent, to me, that does more than me, getting a regular job and playing the game like, some people have had to do. Not saying Killings did it, not saying anyone else primarily did it, but it's like there's a pressure of having to corporatize yourself, having to almost neuter yourself, having to censor yourself. And I got there in that space, and hopefully we'll receive the opportunity to make the same kind of history by just being myself. And that's going to do a lot for people like me because we're always taught to change and assimilate, and assimilation is it's detriment to character, Yeah.
You talk about being yourself. Well, for those who don't know, who is Darius Lockhart? Not just the wrestler, but the person. Who is Darius Lockhart?
I'm just a guy who cares, man. I know that sounds corny and cliche, but it really is. It's like,
hey man, you corny.
Right.
That's what Dennis says to me all the time.
Eddie Murphy gets interviewed by Arsenio Hall. They're just never going to be able to stay on track. But it's like for real. Like when I was a young age when the Trayvon Martin situation happened, and there are people, a lot of adults in my life right there who said, he kind of looks like you, and that kind of set me on a sense of awareness about who I am, what my identity is to the world.
And that's 10 years ago. That's 10 years ago this year.
In that crazy.
Yeah.
And it was the start of a lot of things. It was the start of my journey. I took that, and then I went to college and joined a learning community, which was like based around, black men coming together and really seeing what they are in the world and seeing what they are in the world. And I became an African diaspora studies minor. And through that, I kind of found a way to say, hey, how do I make my work and my my work and my craft, my ability, how can I utilize that to say something and do something profound that's helpful and actually meaningful beyond just something self-serving? Because pro wrestling is honestly, admittedly, self-serving. It's very ego driven. You know, you're always having to think about yourself and how to sell yourself to the masses. It's a show. You know, in a one-on-one match, it's you and someone else, but the eyes are on you, and you're trying to amplify that. So, but I'm not that selfish in nature, I would like to think. I'm an only kid, but I've always been empathetic. So I just always wanted to extend that grace to whatever I do. And now putting it into work, it was really like, how do I say something profound? So I'm a person who, you know, likes to stand for, I guess, I don't want to say stand for change, but I see the wrestling industry has allowed itself to become yet another tool of something is existential and massive now at this point as white supremacy, sadly. And I just want to be a guy to just stand here and change it and say, F you. You know, there's a lot of gatekeepers that pro wrestling has seen throughout, I mean, forever. There's always, I mean, you know, in the sport that's conducted the way it's done, there's a lot of people who get to say no or yes, and that makes or breaks careers for people who might be marginalized naturally. So how do we knock those doors down? How do we, you know, stay true to ourselves? How do we stop letting them marginalize us? I'm the guy who wants to figure that out and do so without having to fold or, you know, go back on any morality, and also help others, you know, get to that point too, whether people who are more marginalized than myself. So I'm just a guy who wants to create change. I'm a man who cares enough to try to make a difference in this thing and save, like, not save, but like really help what I grew up loving, because it's something that can be so beautiful, but has hurt a lot of people because of the lack of opportunities for others and the lack of proper representation for others. So I'm just a guy who wants to change that.
I'll say this, and like through our friendship, I'll say that like I think in general, just the way I was raised, me going to UNCG, being an alum from there, you went to UNCG, but it was after me. You know, just those environments, it makes you naturally just kind of an accepting person, somebody who's open to seeing things in a different way. But I will say that my friendship with you has helped me see other things in a different way as well, as far as trans rights, just different things that I wasn't, not necessarily I was against people, but things you just weren't aware of, you know?
Yeah.
And so when you think about all that and the different things you represent and you put out before, and you also kind of combine that with what you were saying when it comes down to gatekeepers and knocking certain doors down, and there being certain boundaries for certain people if you don't fit in a certain box within pro wrestling. What are some of those boundaries in pro wrestling that have to get knocked down for different performers to kind of shine and get the platform that they deserve, as so they can represent their different communities?
I think it's going to have to take either getting power, the actual power to make decisions, into those marginalized people's hands, or at least getting the powers that be to realize the power and strength are like the opportunity we have to really change what the social standard is. You know, I have a saying that I use quite a bit, but it always hits either way because it's true. You know, it's this thing is do you look like a world champion, or has a world champion always looked like you? You know, from when I was a kid, I was 12 years old. I started watching pro wrestling. Randy Orton was champion at the time. And every day they told me, you know, if you build a wrestler from the ground up, it looks like Randy Orton. If you build a pro wrestler, a perfect pro wrestler, it looks like Randy Orton. Well, Randy Orton is great. He's a wonderful, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, but he's a 6'4", muscled up white guy with tattoos. And that's what the industry has almost like pushed for forever, of what the world champion, what a perfect human looks like. And that gets into people's subconscious a lot. So what you have to really do is change that narrative of what a perfect pro wrestler looks like, or what really a top dog looks like, or what someone who is superior to the rest of the roster looks like, or you know, or just eliminating ideas of superiority, period, that there has to be one person more dominant than everyone else, and it looks like this. I think that doesn't happen with the same kind of gatekeepers around. You know, it's no shot, it's no shade, it's just truth. You know, every time we see the industry needs like a revamp or a recycle or like the reboot button, or, you know, the writing team gets stale, so they'll bring back someone, you know, who knows what they're doing relatively. But at the end of the day, they're always older white men. It's Jim Cornette. If it's not Jim Cornette, it's Eric Bischoff. If it's not Eric Bischoff, it's Paul Heyman. If it's not Paul Heyman, it's Bruce Pritchard. If it's not Bruce Pritchard, it's Vince. If it's not Vince, it's JR. It's always the same outlook, the same outreach. And unfortunately, you know, the way the human psyche works, we all have biases. We all have blind spots. We all have, you know, things we lean toward culturally or aren't able to see culturally because of what our own experience is. And when you're only living and creating from your viewpoint of experience, that's almost detrimental to the rest of us, because in the industry, there's all of us. Like they say, pro wrestling's for everyone. There are a lot of people in pro wrestling. Everyone loves wrestling. It unifies so many different people. You go to a Raw and SmackDown audience and look around, everyone's there, right? So of course that translates to people getting in the ring. It draws people of everywhere. But if we're only centering, you know, pro wrestling as we know it, which is basically, you know, white, heterosexual, just like right there, and that's all we know is the pinnacle of pro wrestling. When you know, call yourself the most elite wrestling on earth and all your top guys are white, or if, you know, you were, you know, having 75 years worth of championship legacy and like maybe only 3 of those people are black and 3 of them happened in the past year, like 4 of those people are black and 3 of them happened in the past 2 years, you know, that it doesn't look good. And it speaks to what the industry is used to. So I say that to say this: you have to either change the people that are making decisions or get them to see that there are more people than what they classify as the norm or the pinnacle of pro wrestling. Something has to change, and world champions can't just keep looking like one person. They have to look like all of us over time. And that's not to just hand out, you know, we're not handing out gold stars or the, you know, awards or what are they say, participation awards. That's not what that is. What it is letting everyone eat from the same plate. Everyone gets the same opportunities. Not same opportunities, you know, some things it's like there's a difference between equity and equality. Yeah. Some people need more than others because they have been underserved as a community. But people of all sorts, of all kinds of walks of life deserve to receive the same opportunities as someone who is, I would say, in this apolitical naturally to the industry would. You know what I mean? So in order to inspire that change, it has to start looking different from the ground up. But it starts backstage, not just in the ring, because then, you know, we're not really getting anywhere.
Really quick, Dennis, before you go, I just want to add in just my 2 cents in there, just what you're saying. So, of course, we met because I used to be a pro wrestler as well. And one of the things I just remember clearly being a kid, wanting to be a pro wrestler, and then sometime maybe around 10. And that was after I got called the N-word the first time, after, you know, people started making fun of me because of my hair or, you know, being darker or things like that. That's when you starting to notice, like, oh, I'm a little different than others. That's when I started noticing. Then that's when I noticed it in wrestling. I was like, well, wait a minute. I don't see anybody that looks like me that, you know, isn't without a bird or isn't, you know, dancing or, you know, putting those types of positions. And then it wasn't until The Rock came along and he's half black where I was like, oh, I can do this. I can go and be a champion. And so that was honestly the first time. I just wanted to throw in that aside before you ask your question, Dennis.
Sorry, not even to even piggyback off that. It is very real. I also have another thing, like a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? That's what they say. Yeah. So how many pictures are in you know, pictures of frames? How many is that in like one match? How many pictures are you looking at in every frame? Equals like, you know, a whole wrestling show, right? If you're watching 2 hours and every black person is losing or on their back or getting, you know, or dancing or becoming, you know, a modern day minstrel show, no shade to anybody, but sometimes it's what we see in pro wrestling. Then how many words are you saying to that audience? How many things are you telling the kids who are watching it? They internalize these things. We're all internalizing the messaging. That's what marketing is. That's why
same thing powerful. With women, same thing with, you know, Hispanic folks, Asian folks, and all that.
Absolutely.
Like, you know,
absolutely.
Every Asian person doesn't need to be a martial artist. You know, every Hispanic person doesn't need to dance and, you know, and come out with a conga line or anything like that.
So, yeah. I mean, we've seen people give Spanish people lawnmowers to ride out with. It's so insulting, and that culture is so much more than labor, and it's disgusting. You know what I mean? But you know, then it was for everyone. But everyone deserves that because the way we see ourselves is eventually important. And I don't think politics stop at representation. But when it comes to pro wrestling, that's a major, conversation of it. It's not who's in the room, it's how they're being used in that room. But that's the whole thing. But my bad, brother. Yes, Dennis. If you
no, you're totally fine. Chris actually kind of brought up the point that I was going to make, was that Chris and I have had these conversations, and for me, it was eye opening for me. Like, gosh, like, Chris is right. And actually, we're talking some just different promotions. I was thinking, like, who is there? It's like all their stars are white guys like me. Now like look at it, So Chris and I have had these conversations. But Darius, you mentioned about changing things backstage. Have you had conversations like this with other performers backstage, and what have those conversations been like?
I mean, backstage, over the phone, in my DM, like I'm having this conversation with Black wrestlers all the time, and with just wrestlers of every race, really. But that's who predominantly reaches out to me. It's the community is becoming more tight knit because we're realizing we're in this together and what's happening and what's been happening. I think it's like a kind of a conscious shift right now. But I think that we're having that conversation more and more. People are saying, are just like, I don't feel, it's almost like we can be given the job, we can, be given the space to be there. But if you're giving me, 2-3 minutes, and opposed to this person getting a 30-minute classic, and that person always gets a 30-minute classic, and that person looks like the last guy who got a 30-minute classic, and the last guy 30-minute classic, and it's like, but they never look like me. It's a little jarring, and you start putting the math to yourself. You start putting the math together. It just hit me like the other day, like with Chris saying The Rock. The Rock was the first time he got to feel like he was like, oh, I could do this. I could be a good wrestler. A lot of young Black people saw themselves like in The Rock because it was the first brother on TV who was like actually kicking ass and doing something. Yeah. And I remember saying to myself, like, a couple months ago, I was watching something Triple H did in 2001, and I was seeing people in the audience like go crazy as a little kid. And I was like, man, if I was a little white kid in 2001, watching Triple H and like Brock Lesnar come out, I felt like I would have felt like I could have done anything. Like anything. Like it's like there's no limit. Brock Lesnar can do anything. He's beating everyone. He can do anything. And it's like with us, we were told on screen at one point that all we're good for, or the person who looks like us, all he was good for is dancing and making jokes and making you laugh, and doing the up and shucking and jiving. Basically, they was told to his face in a promo on live on TV, and then he gets beat at WrestleMania, and then a few months later, he's back to dancing and making people laugh. So it's like, what are you saying to us? People see it, and the jig is definitely up. We want others to see it as well, but people understand that it is harder to see when you aren't from that community, because, like I said, if you're a kid and you're watching the person who looks like you every week do amazing things, do incredible things, do like life altering, like Stone Cold was out there fighting the police. I would never. I would.
Yo,
but there's a Black kid who would be like, "Whoa,
that's a great point."
Great.
You know what I'm saying?
That's a great point.
It's mind blowing, like what you get to see people do and what we don't get to see ourselves do. It kind of limits the brain of what we can do. You feel me? Like it's not to be like a broken record, but that's it. It is. You do have to take a bit of a conscious shift and be like, okay, step back. I love pro wrestling, and I think it's amazing because every person who looks like me does amazing things. I'm always seeing people who let me do amazing things. But imagine if like. It's a little bit of cognitive dissonance. That's the funny part, because AEW exists as an alternative, right? Because WWE has they have until recently, they were the big company who liked the big guys, like the big muscles, they like the big things. And for a while, it was harder to get people who looked like a Darby Allin in those rooms, right? Yeah. And it was harder to get people who looked like an Adam Cole in those rooms, right? So AEW exists for people to not only like have an alternative style of wrestling, but like really see something different that other companies haven't been showing you as something positive or valid, even because people are invalidated by their size and height all the time in pro wrestling. Yeah. So it's funny, people are able to say, yeah, Rage Against the Machine, we're for the little guy, for the Darby Allin, Rage Against the Machine, and shout out to him, kudos. But like, there are a lot of people who aren't given that same grace to Black wrestlers who don't get themselves seen. Where is the big revolution for people who, are undersized and, you know, marginalized because of their race, undersized and marginalized because of their sexuality, or big and undersized and underplayed because of all those things. It's just really a thing you have to take a step back and apply to different people and realize that, you know, the rules don't apply for everyone. It's a little different. It's a little odd. And when you see how people are almost Teflon, as opposed to others who were just like easily beaten, it just makes you wonder. It just makes you ask questions. And I implore everyone to start asking questions. It helps me see a lot clearer.
I know, like times when we've talked, of course, we talk about all kinds of things, and this is along the lines of things that we've spoken about. When you look at MMA and other sports like that, like I think MMA in general is very diverse in the way that it comes across, because you got guys from Africa who are kicking butt. You got guys from Brazil who are kicking butt. You got guys from Japan who are kicking butt. You got black dudes and white dudes and Hispanic dudes from the United States of America kicking butt. And it's really at that point, like it's really all about, can you win or not? And it's diverse in that. It's not just diverse in the numbers. It's diverse in, you know, who's being represented. Francis Ngannou is one of the biggest MMA fighters right now, and he is just kicking butt right now. And so I think, you know, it's more than just the number. It's also about just how things are kind of presented. I want to do a quick turn if I can, because I want to talk to you about some other stuff, but we normally try to keep it on the shorter side.
Yeah, my bad.
No, it's all good, because you have some good stuff to say. But I don't know if I've told you this story, Dennis, but the first time I ever saw Darius, I was doing a night shift at 102 Jams in Greensboro.
Okay.
I was watching this video that was put on Facebook, and his trainer, legendary pro wrestler and trainer, George South, has had all kinds of matches with, you know, Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, all those folks. Probably has had matches at WRL. We probably need to talk to him about that.
Yeah.
Back when they used to do the tapings back in the 70s and 80s. He did a church show, I want to say, and the ring broke or something. And so there were kids that were there who still were waiting to see pro wrestling. So all the wrestlers decided to, okay, we're still going to wrestle, but we're going to wrestle on the grass. And so that was Darius's first match against Cedric Alexander on grass. And there was highlights of this event, and my man took a power slam on grass. And then they did an interview with him afterwards, you know, back before the beard and, you know, had a little bit lighter voice. And he said he went to UNCG, and I was like, yo, he's a fellow Spartan. He took a power slam on grass. This is his first match. That dude is all right with me. And when I saw him at CWF, I had to go up and talk to him when I saw him for the first time. And so I brought that up to ask this. Besides that, you know, particular match, what is something that maybe has happened to you in your wrestling career where it's lemons and you had to make lemonade out of that joint? Like you thought like, oh boy, this isn't going to be good. And then it turned out to be the best thing ever at the end of the night.
Well, the NWA promo comes to mind, you know, you get like shaken up through the concussion, and I'm like, oh, this is terrible. I got taken off the pay-per-view. Everyone's tuning in to see me. And then they're like, no, cut a promo. And it ended up being like the best thing that could have happened to me like that weekend. But in something more like ancient that people don't know about, I mean, there have been plenty of times. I remember, you know, I was getting ready to wrestle Brian Pillman Jr. In Georgia one night for Viral Pro Wrestling, and I was defending my championship. So it was high up on the card, and the night's going, and they're coming to me, and they're like, Brian, his flight just got delayed. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then he'll be here by 4. And I'm like, all right. And then they're like, okay, Brian's flight got delayed again. He'll be here by 7. And I'm like, okay, cool. And the show starts at like 6:30. And they're like, all right, Brian, his flight got delayed again. He'll be here by like 9:30. And I'm like, oh, we're semi-main. So like, all right. Dude comes in 9 minutes before our match, putting on his outfit, like putting on the pants. It's like, all right, what are we doing? And I'm like, you know, and so we just went out there with like nothing, like just with nothing. And it worked out. There's that. There's, I mean, I'm trying to think of other things. I mean, you know, sometimes a lot of things are just being at the right place at the right time, you know. I'll have a lot of stories where it's like, I have a lot of stories where, like, you know, overseas in England, I might have been somewhere and I thought like I was stranded, you know, because I didn't have a ride back to London or something, and ended up with a wrestler being like, "Well, hey, do you want to work this show in Cardiff? We're about to head this way." And I'm like, "Cool." Hop in the car with them, and you know that works out. I mean, wrestling's like that, where you get undercut and you're thinking, "Man, this is gonna be the worst thing that could ever happen in my career. I'm stranded in the middle of a country, or you know, I'm injured and I can't do anything, or you know, this I don't know where my opponent is." And it just sometimes it just works out if you just relax and you think about, you know, how you got here to this part. You got this far on your own. You know you aren't here by accident. So sometimes sometimes it's just the realization and remembering that fact and get you through it. But those are just some quick stories off the head. I wish I had more time to think. I don't want to sit here awkward silence.
My final question for you is, Darius, as an independent wrestler, the only way you get paid is by working, or maybe you're selling merchandise, but you have to wrestle and work in order to get paid. How hard is it to get booked? I mean, obviously you've built a name for yourself now nationally, but how hard is it to get booked or continue to make sure that you have something lined up, because shows might get canceled because of COVID, and even just dealing with COVID, you know, a bunch of independent promotions not only stopped doing shows, but just completely shut down. How hard is it as an independent, basically an independent contractor, to continue to keep having work?
Well, you know, today in the modern age, it's a little bit easier because of technology. You know, you have a direct outlet, you have a direct resource, or like, you know, connection to the promoters. You know what I mean? Just because, you know, back in the day, you had to mail things and wait for, you know, send a tape and all that stuff like that. But now you have a direct line to the guys, whoever you want to work for, and hopefully they respond. But that's the thing. Sometimes it gets hard because, you know, with COVID, everyone is vying for a spot, or in COVID, there are only so many spots, only so much money that the promoter can spend, because, you know, houses are down naturally. People aren't going to go out in masses anymore. And then, you know, you have to know someone who knows someone. Some people, you message the promoter, he won't message you back. He'll just leave you on red. There's all these intangibles. It kind of makes that that kind of conversation hard. And plus, it's harder for some than others. You know, sometimes, you know, bookings will come my way, though. People will ask me how much you booked, and sometimes I'm having to email people like, "Hey, what are you guys doing here?" So it depends on what level you're at. But today's day and age, I'm not even really necessarily worried about chasing bookings. My strategy is, but my circumstance is a little different than people's, so my strategy is has changed a lot. So I'm not necessarily hunting for bookings like I used to when I used to come up and you know, message people on Facebook every other day. Nowadays, for me, it's just more about what I want to do, thankfully. And I'm able to, you know, have a little bit of choice, because I think that's important. With the world going to, I don't want to share all my secrets here, but with the world going to a this format where, unfortunately, we're learning to live with COVID instead of doing what it requires to get rid of it. That's another conversation. We have to be more picky about where we do wrestle at, because you don't have to be everywhere anymore. That's not what's going to get your notice. Now the internet exists, so now you only have to be in the places that matter, and make what you're doing count, and make sure it's something you enjoy doing. You know, it used to be, where I was younger, I used to drive 10 hours to be a part of a scramble match. And it's like, it's not worth it. And granted, I didn't know I was going to get a scramble match till I got there, which, you know, pissed you off. But, you know, people who know that were still making that ride. And, you know,
here's $25 on a hot dog.
Yes. Here is a very divisive conversation of pro wrestling, but I'm willing to tap on it just a little bit and then we'll move on. A lot of people, I feel like exploitation is a pillar of professional wrestling. There are a lot of people who exploit you, who will undervalue you tremendously to the utmost degree for as long as they can do it. And they'll tell you that you're going to do it if you love the business enough. What that really is just an abusive pattern recycling itself. They had to go through it, so they're going to make someone else go through it. And people start to resent you if you don't go through it and call you privileged or pampered. But in any profession, we call ourselves professional wrestling, independent before it or not, if it's profession. If you were to go through the same things professionally as any other career path, it wouldn't be tolerated. It wouldn't go down the same. You know what I mean? So I encourage people to understand the power that they have as performers and pick what they want to do. Now, why I have the stage to say that, like, pick what matters, pick what you want to do. If you want to drive 10 hours for it, cool. But you don't have to make those jobs anymore to get bookings. It's just it's a different world, and I just want people to be imperative about that. You know, you can get sick nowadays. Be very careful. So I don't know. Getting booking's kind of easy. I don't know.
Hey, you know how many EEOC violations are happening in pro wrestling right now? So you know how many EEOC violations are happening in pro wrestling right now?
Right now? Or
yeah,
always. Technically,
forever.
You really want to look at it like, there's some nasty stuff we get into, man. People bleed all over that canvas in today's wrestling. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, you know, we'll go ahead and cut it short, but I want to thank you for coming on and giving us some time. And you know, we'll be texting later. But you know, it's good to have you on. And for the folks who don't know him, look him up, follow him on Twitter and Instagram. He's known as the Revolutionary, and you can hear through some of his ideas why he is revolutionary, especially if you know how things have kind of gone historically in the business of professional wrestling. I'm excited to see what's next for you and everything. Anything you want to put out there, Pub, you know, let people know about you, that type of thing, so folks can follow you on your journey.
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Darius Lockhart. You can follow me on Twitter at DLockPro. I do have a website, DariusLockhart.com. All those things are attached. There are, you know, links in bios that have link trees. So, you know, payment things or even merchandise are always going to be in my bio or my links, whatever. Enjoy. If I think about it, you know, enjoy wrestling. I'm filming it this weekend, Saturday. So I don't know when this podcast will drop, but be on the lookout for my match at Enjoy. Check out my YouTube channel, you know, also Darius Lockhart. It's a lot of things I'm doing right now. I'm very excited about. So just follow it up and just remember your power. That's all I got to say about that.
I will say that if you just go through your recent promos, like one day I kind of did that, and you send me stuff and I look at him like, man, that's good. But then when you keep going, and I was like, dang, he's been really like putting out consistent promos, and this thing's been, and they've been hitting for a long time, man.
Thank you.
I remember even Dennis sent me, was like, man, this dude can cut a promo.
That's awesome. Okay. Yeah, no, thank you, Dennis. No, that's that thing about putting things in the void. Sometimes things will be the best thing you ever made. And you're like, everyone's got to see this promo. And it's like 5 likes, like 14 views. And you're like, I'll get them next time. Yeah. And so it has to be good every time because you don't know when the time is going to be. So you have to keep, you know, make sure it's good. You can't slack off on one because then that's the one everyone will see and be like, I thought this guy was good. Yeah. So, you know, I always got to be on point. But thank you, though. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you very much. Thanks for having me, both you and Dennis, man.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm waiting for my revolutionary shirt to come in from Pro Wrestling Tees. I got the blue one, the Jackie Robinson, you know, like throwback shirt. So I ordered that. I'm still waiting for it to come in.
Thank you very much. I'm a big fan. I think that's probably one of my favorite releases I put out. So thank you very much for supporting and doing that one too. Send a pic. We'll upload it and everything.
We'll do.
You know what you gotta say before we get out of here.
What's up?
You know what you gotta say.
What time is it?
Nation time. Let's go.
All right, there you go.
Darius Lockhart right here on Culture State. All right, that was a good interview. I want to thank my good friend Darius Lockhart for coming on with us. You know, this is one of those interviews when you look forward, or you're 5 years from now, you look back on this and you see, you know, the beginnings of the making of a superstar. And I really do believe in that. It reminds me of a time where I went to Raw with Darius in Greensboro in 2018. We had a chance to watch my good friend Levis, who performs as No Way Jose. And, you know, I remember like taking a video and then switching the video to me and Darius. And like, I did it like a caption says, watching one friend on Raw while sitting with another friend who will be on Raw one day.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm really proud of those guys and what they've been doing in wrestling and how good they are, you know, so shout outs to all those guys for sure.
Absolutely. And shout out to him, but also shout out to this awesome.
Yeah.
Sure. I know I mentioned it during our interview. We taped this a couple of days before this about waiting for my shirt. As soon as we wrapped up that interview, I got a notification shirts in the mailbox. Dang it. Wish I had it for the interview. But big thanks to Darius for this shirt. It makes my arms look great. Just the way the cut of the shirt is. So thank you for that, sir. You make me look jacked.
Yep. You can go to prowrestlingtees.com if you want to get that or other shirts. He has a lot of great shirts too. Show the back too. 42, Darius Lockhart. There it goes. There it goes right there.
Yes. And you know what the best thing about companies like Pro Wrestling Tees are? A lot of people want to support here locally You want to support independent artists. You want to support independent businesses, privately owned companies. Well, buying a shirt for a pro wrestler is basically like almost handing them a $20 bill. Be like, thank you for your work. Like it's basically what it is. It's a way to directly support an independent artist. It's the best way to think about it. So I like buying these stuff because I like to support those that I want to support, those that I enjoy watching, that I want to see continue to be successful, people that I like. So that's why I bought this, because I support Darius. I also love his message. Again, it says revolutionary on the shirt for those who can't watch right now, or you should again watch this on YouTube. But I'll also just love his message of be free, be brave, be inspired, be you, be revolution, like be revolutionary. The fact that the message is so profound, and the conversation that we were able to have with him, Chris, and the conversations that you and I have had, even outside of this podcast, is just hearing that about how he wants people to be their best selves and just trying to transform the way this world operates. It was just very inspiring. So I wear this not only to support him, but also to help spread his message.
And another cool thing about it too, sometimes I think what a mistake that a lot of people make, they can look at people and see like, oh, they represent this, they must be against this or whatever. And they try to pit things against each other. I think Darius has done a good job of saying, this is what I represent. This is my particular struggle every day. But I have the ability to look outside of myself and see that there's folks in the gay community, folks in the trans community, there's folks in, Hispanic community, Asian communities, different communities that go through their own struggles. And I'm standing with them and for them in solidarity. That's really what the fist means. And so, that's one of the things I think is really cool. So I would say give him a follow, check him out, check out his promos, check out everything about him. I guarantee you'll love him. And of course, if you're listening to us, you have a connection to the state of North Carolina somehow. Right. He's from Charlotte, North Carolina. So, that's also a great reason to cheer for him as well.
I see some big title belts around his waist in the future. Some big title.
Hopefully 10 pounds of gold, man.
10 pounds of gold. The old
That'll
NWA.
Be amazing.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Love to see that. But
Thank
also,
you guys for listening and watching another episode of the Culture State Podcast. Give us a follow. I'm at Chris Lee TV, the fan rookie for Dennis, and then also Culture State Pod on Twitter and on IG.
Also, make sure if you want 10 pounds of gold around your waist, I had to Papa Murphy's Pizza to get 10 pounds of gold around my waist. That's what I like to do. Go to Papa Murphy's. Yeah. $10.99 large pizzas on Tuesdays. Give them a follow at Papa
Golden
Murphy's.
Crust.
Yes, that golden crust. Yes, inside my belly. That's right. $10.99 Tuesdays. Give them a follow at Papa Murphy's on Twitter and Instagram. Papa Murphy's, changed the way you pizza.
Also, thank you for all the 5 stars and everything like that. We want more 5 stars. So thank you so much for that. Wherever you listen to your podcast or watch your podcast. If you're on watching us on YouTube, please give us that like. And also subscribe to 99.9 The Fans YouTube page so you can get more into your inbox every time we drop an episode.
That's right.
Thank you so much. We out, baby.
The Culture State Podcast, part of the Capital Broadcasting Podcast Network, with new shows coming out every Wednesday. Download and subscribe from wherever you get your podcasts, including the WREL Sports Fan app.